Welcome to the Nebraska Hawk's Nest. These guys are brave! They're Hawkeyes, living in enemy territory. Listen, these guys are way past their prime, but they're still Hawkeyes! They're spreading the Hawkeye hype to all of Nebraska. The frost advisory is canceled! Corn huskers? More like corn suckers. Are you ready for this podcast? Let's go Hawks!
All right. Well, welcome back to the Nebraska Hawk's Nest. We are lucky enough to be joined by Landan and Levi Paulsen, the Paulsen brothers from Iowa Hawkeye football. How's it going, guys?
We're hanging in there. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's going good.
It's a little disappointing to see that you guys have cleaned up a little bit and trying to become productive members of society now. Got the nice looking haircut, look like you could work for like a stockbroker or a Fortune 500 company right now. You're looking smooth.
Right, so a lot of people don't recognize us. I mean, we both lost some weight, got the haircut, so take that as a compliment. Thank you, guys.
So for our viewers at home, can you guys identify which one of you is Levi and which one of you is Landan?
I'm Landan. I'm the older twin.
I'm Levi, I'm the younger twin, and the better looking one.
So I hear that from my readings that you guys, the coaches would get you guys confused with one another quite a bit and in the O-line room and meetings and things like that. How frustrating did that get for you guys?
For the most part, I think the coaches were fairly decent. There was, every now and then Coach Ferentz would always just call us Paulsen, so he could never get it wrong. And Brandon Sheriff had number 68 before I had it, so it was Brandon Landan, so they could kind of go off of that.
But I mean, we've dealt with it our whole life. I mean, growing up, still to this day, for the 24 years we've been on this planet, my grandfather still can't tell us apart. He just says, "Come here, boy," or "How you doing, boy?" So we're kind of used to people not being able to tell us apart. We answer names.
Never disrespect the grandpa. So
Exactly.
That's what Jerry always says to me whenever we're hanging out. Get over here, boy. Come on over here. Fine, whatever. Got to respect your elders.
Grandpa of the Hawk's Nest.
I do what I'm told. He's older than me, so I shut up and do what I'm told. So I don't want to piss Grandpa Jerry off. So, so let all the Hawkeye fans out there know what you guys are up to now, where you're living, and what you guys are doing for work.
Yeah, 10-4. So we are southwest of Iowa City in a small town called Kelowna. It's about 20% of it is Amish. It's about a town of 2,000 people.
Yep.
I'm currently living with Landan. He bought a house here. My girlfriend and I were looking for a house, had a hard time finding it. He said, "Hey, just move in here." I bought a 3-bedroom house, and it's just me and my girlfriend. So we lived here. And the plan was to get my girlfriend to graduate from dental hygiene school, which she'll do this weekend, and then move out, and who knows where we're headed to next. But in terms of an occupation, I currently work in sales for a company called Neat. If you're watching, you can see it in the background there. And
All right.
We are a company based out of Oslo, Norway. And what we do is design and manufacture video conferencing hardware specifically for Zoom.
Wow.
And so for me, I graduated college. We played in the Holiday Bowl, and we were both kind of looking for jobs and up in the air and kind of fit in where you can get in. The unemployment rate was so low in Southeast Iowa that jobs were few and far between. And so I got a job working as operations manager for a solar energy company out in North Liberty. And I coordinated over 500 projects in the state of Iowa. I coordinated a bunch of projects in the state of Missouri as well. And I kind of had a 1-year tenure there, and kind of decided it was time to move on, and didn't really, know where I was going to go with my life. Coach Ferentz told me one of my earliest years, he said, if I could tell you boys anything right now, it's that your 20s is for figuring out what you want to do in your life. And kind of started out to be that way. But just a couple months ago, I accepted a job at NHN as well in business operations. So I work with the global head of operations, and we deal with orders all across the world. So
that's awesome. You guys get to work together now, and you'll, I guess Jerry and I have found out sometimes figuring out what you want to do into your 20s can bleed into your 30s, and hopefully not your 40s, but Jerry and I are getting there. We're late bloomers. So
one of these days we'll figure it out. If you guys know what we're supposed to do when we get older, let us know. We're a couple guys in our basement doing a podcast. So
oh yeah. So yeah, let us know if you guys get it figured out for us. We'd appreciate it. But this company sounds awesome. That's great that you guys are going to continue to be able to work together. Speaking of working together, when you guys were coming out of high school with your recruitment, what other schools were you guys considering other than Iowa? And when you guys came out, were you dead set on being a package deal, or did you guys consider going your separate ways?
I don't know. We really didn't have much guidance. Our dad helped us out a lot in the recruiting process, but nobody at Woodbury Central had ever gone through anything like it. And, in the digital age, it just kind of changed. It was like the Hayden Fry area. There was no media, or there was, but it was a video camera in your face here and there, and the recording here and there. But now we've got social media and all of that stuff. So we really didn't know, and to answer your question, I don't think that we could ever, I don't think that we would have ever thought to go to different places. If it happened, it happened. If it happened, it happened. But I don't think that we were ever in the mindset that we were going to be apart from each other.
Yeah, but it was so different for somebody from our school to kind of start getting recruited. We went to a few camps, started getting recognized, got our first offer, and then from that day forward, it's like everybody and their dog sends you a piece of mail. Oregon from the West Coast, you're talking, Auburn, Florida, Miami from the East Coast, and then everybody in between sends you this mail, and you're not really sure if it's fluff or if it's like serious. It was so new to us. But with that being said, we did get invited to a lot of visits across the Big Ten, and we visited a lot of organizations and football teams across the Midwest, because obviously kind of schooling was at the forefront of our minds. Like, I was really kind of leaning towards maybe something more agricultural based, where Landan's really leaning more towards something more health and human physiology / medicine related. So with that in mind, we did go meet the different coaches, visit the different organizations to really see what kind of fit. And at the end of the day, our deciding factor was, one, we had a scholarship to the University of Iowa, but two, we gelled with the University of Iowa better than we gelled with any other coaches.
The people, for sure.
The people.
We've heard that with other recruits talking about. Did you just feel that Iowa knew you better when you came to campus? They were more prepared, more organized. We've heard that from other recruits saying that Iowa just kind of seemed to have their act together more so than other places they visited.
Yeah, Coach Ferentz has a knack for it, and he has a knack for names, and he has a knack for faces. But it's just those little tiny details, and he preaches it, all the time. The details, and truly him knowing who my little sister was, and Reese Morgan knowing who my little sister was, and Reese Morgan when he's in South Dakota stopping through Woodbury Central and visiting my mom's classroom, like that stuff's cool, and that means more than anything.
Yeah, and I mentioned a lot of fluff in terms of like the email campaigns and the mail campaigns that all these schools sent out. Another thing was that Iowa really, and excuse my language, they were really no bullshit. They told us, hey, you guys, they didn't exactly say it this way, but they said, you guys are fat. You guys are going to take some development, and it's going to take time. We're a developmental program, and I think me and Landon kind of hearing that, we're like, okay, these guys are going to give us the right tools. They're going to, food, workouts, playbook. They're going to build us up. Hopefully by, our 3rd, 4th, 5th year, we're playing a lot of football and good football at that.
I was more well known maybe than any other Division I school for their development with the strength and conditioning program, with the position coaches and everybody involved with the program. Tell us about your journey from the time you guys walked onto campus until the time that you left, about how you developed it as men and as football players to be some of the best offensive linemen we've had at the school for quite some time.
I think that's really generous. It's crazy, and getting recruited when you're a sophomore, in the weight room by yourself at 6 a.m. and Reese Morgan shows up there and he's watching and he's, talking to your coach and whatnot. He's watching the way you work, and it's like, we really didn't do anything different than we normally do. Right. But then you walk through those doors and you see faces that, we didn't really watch football growing up. I mean, we didn't really have a team. We thought we had pro teams, but we didn't watch it. We were outside more than anything. And if we were inside, it was probably because we were in trouble. But I think that physically, emotionally, psychologically, I think that there's a couple pillars in there that go unnoticed. The mental aspect of the game, the emotional aspect of the game, the psychological aspect of the game. Everybody knows that I was going to build you to be real physical beasts. And there's a progression that you go through from the time you go in there. You're learning how to stretch, and we can barely make it through the warm-up our first week there, and we're like sweating so profusely and can't make weight and blah, blah, blah. But you get into a routine and you get it and you know it and whatever. But Carmen Tebby, our psychologist, helped me out a lot just as far as my mental game, and I could go to her and talk to her about anything. Later on in my senior year, I was a little bit overweight, and I was like going into summer conditioning. I was nervous. I had anxiety. I'm like, I'm not going to make my times. And if I keep sitting in a sauna on Sundays for 2 hours to lose 20 pounds, I'm going to keel over. And she's like, well, why don't you just talk to Coach Doyle? I'm like, well, I never really thought about that. She's like, go talk to him. Went to talk to Coach Doyle. And he said, Mr. Paulsen, how can I help you? And we set up a plan, and a plan to lose weight. But the psychological aspect, the mental aspect of the game, they really, I wouldn't say put you through the ringer, but they push you, and they push you to the limit. And it's not ever like anything super severe. It's like, Paulsen, you didn't touch a line. You're going to come back and do another rep. Like, oh, that makes sense. I didn't do things the right way, so they're going to make me come back and do it the right way. It wasn't ever like they were, pointing fingers. It was because the details matter, and all of those steps along the way were really cool. And then, I mean, to end my tangent, I think being a 4th and 5th year player is one of the coolest parts of being an Iowa Hawkeye. Just to see that, young kids are going through the exact same things that you went through, and you're telling those guys what Austin Blythe was telling us when we were freshmen. It's like, keep your head down, keep going, don't take stuff personally, move forward, and ultimately those things, will come back to help you in the future. So yeah, I think being a 4th and 5th year player is really cool, and to see the mentorship that goes on.
But the transition from Mobile to the University of Iowa, I'll talk about it just quickly in a couple different aspects. First, from a football aspect, you're playing in front of 200 people at Mobile, and
it's probably more than that.
I mean, not much more, if that. You're playing both sides of the ball. You don't really schematically know football. You know pretty much what run blocking is, i.e., you can go downfield. You know what pass blocking is, i.e., you can't go downfield. I mean, that's the pretty much basics. We know, 1, 2, 3, 4 hole, evens right, odds left, and that's really the details to what we knew football. So when we got to Iowa, it was like, whoa, they're talking in a completely different language. You know, there's a whole playbook in place already, and they set, you know, a playbook on your desk this thick, and, you know, you are expected to learn it, you know, and by your third, fourth, and fifth year, I mean, you understand that playbook from front to back. And it was so cool to actually understand football, understand why we run certain plays with certain defenses. Now, to the other side of things, and you guys have long-winded and times two, so that's like a double whammy, so sorry about that. But on the other side of things, we grew up in Northwest Iowa, conservative Northwest Iowa, very minimal diversity. You know, I think at our school we had maybe a Hispanic family and we had maybe a Black family throughout our entire K through 12, preschool through 12. So going to the University of Iowa, first of all, a big city, what we thought to be a big city. Now kind of looking at, like, my sister lives in Chicago. I work with people in Los Angeles and Detroit. It's like, yeah, you know, Iowa City is really not that big, but to us it was. So that was kind of a culture shock at first. I mean, you have people on your team that are from some of the largest cities in the nation, and they have came through a complete different upbringing than you have. You know, the values and kind of the things that our parents have driven and that our culture and society in Northwest Iowa has driven is completely different than how they grew up. You know, they talk about how they lived, and it was just like eye-opening. It's like, whoa, there's a completely different world out there, which Landon and I enjoyed because, I mean, as you guys can hear, listen to this podcast, we talk a lot and we love talking to people and getting everything we can out of people. So it was awesome and great to learn, you know, the different people on our team and really mesh with them, connect with them on a deeper level than just playing football.
I think, and
Stop.
yeah, well, you talked about going from high school to college, but I think physically going from high school where you're playing both sides of the ball to going to University of Iowa where you're playing one specific position, I think the first day in pads is like, oh my gosh, I just got my face ripped off by Josie Jewell and I'm laying on my back. You know, it was crazy. You know, it's a totally different pace, but then again, the reps are super fast and super aggressive, and then you get a good break. It's not like, let's run a play, let's run a play, let's run a play, let's run a play, let's run a play. It's run 2 or 3 plays and call it a break, just like a normal series would be. So that was another interesting thing.
So something I've wondered, guys, and maybe I'm the only one, but, you know, I see you guys over there, and before the interview we were talking, and, you know, the weight loss, you see so many guys when they leave a program or they leave the pros, linemen, and they drop the weight like they do. How difficult is training table? I mean, you know, you see all these huge meals, but it's got to be a ton of work keeping that on, not just weightlifting, but I mean, the required eating, the whole, you know, take us through that. And how difficult is that to adjust to and transition to as part of being a lineman in Division I football?
And those shakes too.
Right. That's a huge component of it. Well, I mean, for us, it wasn't that difficult. I'll tell you why, because back in 7th or 8th grade, when we really started, our next door neighbor said, you know, hey, Dan, talking to my dad, he said, hey, Dan, are your boys thinking about playing college football? And my dad's like, farm boy, you know, agronomist, really doesn't watch football. He said, well, I don't know. He said, well, I think you should because they're big, you know, and they're decently athletic, and they could potentially get their school paid for. So from that day forward, my dad, you know, our story, I don't know if anybody's heard it or you guys have heard it, but my dad kind of started getting these muscle and fitness magazines, which at the time were like the only thing we had. We started kind of following some workouts in there. But then I think Landon and I got our first smartphone or iPad or an iPod or something, and we started watching these YouTube videos. And a person we found was a guy by the name of C.T. Fletcher. Huge dude. And he kind of brainwashed us. Just this one video, this one documentary of him, brainwashed us to think that if we wanted to be the biggest, baddest MFers in the world, you had to eat. You had to eat a lot of calories. You had to like put yourself through suffering to like, you know, get big. So we ate everything. And I mean everything. Something that is kind of an unspoken myth in our town is that we actually calculated it out. And my parents spent more on milk per week than they did commuting to and from work. And my dad drove 20 miles to work and 20 miles from work every single day in a piece of junk urine that gets 8 miles a gallon.
About 17 gallons of milk a week.
17 gallons.
Wow.
For us, the transition wasn't that hard. It is a lot to consume. But then again, I mean, they do a really good job of it. They give you everything that you need and more. You drink so many liquid calories. I mean, any drink that you guys drink, replace it with a 260 or 360 calorie drink, and you have 8 of those a day. That's already a lot of calories just in liquid form.
Yeah, probably before 10 o'clock in the morning, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, we already had probably 3,000 calories in us,
Wow.
which is crazy. Whether that's eating food or liquid. I mean, we probably had 1,500 calories that were liquid before 9 o'clock.
Wow.
But I was going to say something else about.
And it was interesting too because your body goes through so much kind of trauma in that you go through different phases. So in the fall, it's obviously hotter. You're in pads. You're burning a lot more calories because you're going through a 2.5 hour practice and you're doing an hour lift. And then you have conditioning. Like you're working out a whole bunch in the off season. So by the time the season gets over with, your body weight's low. But then once the season ends and you're trying to get that off season rolling, then it's like, okay, eat a lot. You're not burning as many calories.
Get that good hibernation fat.
Yeah. So it was awesome. But they really helped you out.
But guys, on the back end, it's brutal. We still talk about it to each other. We're volume eaters. Like we just want to look at a plate and see it be full, and we want to finish that plate. So now it's like a can of tuna and celery, carrots, and broccoli, and that's what we're eating.
Eat up, guys.
Well, you guys had that. What was the guy's name that you said inspired you?
CT Fletcher.
CT Fletcher. See, Jerry and I had a man named Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken, and that was our inspiration. He told us.
Why are you guys laughing? We're being honest. We're bearing our souls, and you're laughing at us.
That's really
He made me believe that a family bucket of chicken could be eaten by one man. So and I still live that dream today. Tell us a little bit about your guys' relationship with Reese Morgan, because I feel like the more former Hawkeyes that we talk to, that this might be maybe a little bit of the football whisperer. The guy can find a diamond in the rough better than about any football coach I've ever heard of. And it seems like every guy that's played for him has a special relationship with him. Tell us what your guys' relationship is like with Coach Morgan.
Go ahead, bro.
Oh, super good. It was probably the earliest kind of cultivated relationship that we had with a football coach.
Besides probably Bill Blisle.
Yeah, besides Bill Blisle at Iowa State, actually. And it was awesome because, again, comes back to what my initial point was. He was a straight shooter. He said, we're a developmental program. We think that you guys have what it takes. 1, you're coachable. 2, you got a good frame on you. And you get good grades. That's what it takes to compete and excel at the University of Iowa as a student athlete. So throughout the entire recruiting process, and then even afterwards when we were on the team, he'd still be out on the road recruiting. He'd still stop by my mom's 3rd grade classroom when she was teaching, just say, hi, I want to stop in, blah, blah, blah.
Maddie, our little sister was probably in 5th or 6th grade when we first started getting recruited, and now she's a freshman in college. And Maddie would call her Grandpa Reese and give her a big old hug every time she saw her. And I mean, it was just cool. And furthermore, I think Coach Morgan was great because, he was vulnerable and he was honest, and he would he'd say he's coming to a wrestling meet and he'd miss it, and I mean, extenuating circumstances, and he'd just tell us, missed it, boys, I'm sorry, but we saw him at track meets and all over, and he was recruiting more guys than just us, Schott and Coy and Tristan, and I mean, Brett Waxter and Jake Newberg, like a whole bunch of guys he was recruiting in the state at the time. And I don't know, he's just
great, salt of the earth. He's a really good guy, and he has a way of coaching individuals that's really unique. And we didn't get that kind of firsthand, obviously, because he was on the defense, but we saw it, and all the guys in our room did speak highly of him. there towards the end of his career. I think we were in camp one year, and I think I did almost see him end his life on a bicycle going down the four-wheel strip. That's another story. But he's still alive. Great guy.
Oh, good deal. So speaking of Kirk, he's kind of come up, and we all know his pedigree's offensive line, with you guys being offensive linemen. But I believe Coach Paulsen has been your coach, I believe, the whole time you were there, your position coach. I mean, how much involvement does Kirk have? I'm sorry?
It was 3 years was Paulsen, and then we had Brian.
But anyway, how much interaction, is Kirk more involved with your position group, or being offensive lineman and being his pedigree, or does he still pretty much rely on the assistant coaches to handle that, or how does that usually work?
Oh my gosh. I think, yes, Coach Ferentz would, when
he puts an emphasis on offensive line plays all day.
When Coach Paulsen or Coach Brian Ferentz were on the road recruiting, Coach Ferentz would step in, and man, he would put us through the ringer. It was incredible to see him, doing what he was brought up doing, and did for a lot of years, very successfully. But
it's really an interesting dynamic, like in a team practice, right? I've heard multiple people kind of refer to him as a ghost. Like you'd be going about it with your position coach, whether it's Brian Ferentz or Coach Paulsen at the time, and you'd have your assistants, and you'd be going through.
On the Kenyon practice field where there's that really sloping, there's that sloped turf hill.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about. There's that sloped turf hill. He would stand at the top of it, right underneath the light. And like he's saying, you would be doing a random drill like on the totally opposite end of the field, and you'd hear somebody from a mile away screaming your name, and you knew exactly who it was every time, and it was him. And he just had eagle eyes. Paulsen, what are your elbows doing? Do another one. And he'd bring you back. But it was a really cool dynamic because Coach's philosophy was, in team periods, he was really hard on us. He would coach us hard. But when we were doing individual, he would let the coaches coach. And, if there was something from a past game that maybe he needed to jump in and say some words, he would, and he wouldn't take it very lightly on us. But for the most part, he was around. He didn't sit in our meetings ever. But just a good presence to have, because got a lot of offensive line play.
So I'm getting the feeling from our conversation that you guys are going to have a few of these stored away in the bank, but Jerry and I always like to find out in the locker room or in the practice field, what are one or two just classic stories of something that happened that the average fan, like Jerry or myself or anybody listening, would not know about or wouldn't be privy to? Something that you guys look back on when you're hanging out at home on a Friday night having a beer, and you're like, gosh, remember that? That was freaking ridiculous. Something that makes you guys laugh, just like a great story.
There's so many of them. Some of them are like triple X rated.
Let's hear them. We don't have a rating system here.
It's just us. Come on, guys.
Nobody's watching.
Well, in 2015, the head coach's youngest son, when we beat Wisconsin, he was rubbing his balls on the trophy. on the trophy. And
on the bowl?
Oh yeah. And
that's
just
awesome.
Yeah.
So hopefully nobody was kissing the trophy after that.
Right. I think there's another story that, I'll look back on and it'll always be funny. I have really high arches on my feet, and ever since I got to Iowa, the coaches would tell me to point my toes straight ahead and not walk on the outsides of my feet. Ever since I got there, and no matter what I would do, I just couldn't do it. And it was every single year, every morning, Landan, toe straight ahead. Coach would call me back, toe straight ahead, and I just could never do it because I wasn't born that way. My toes point out when I walk, and it's brutal. Senior year, I'm standing in the huddle. We're going through a big team period, And we're probably what, 10 or 12 minutes into it.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And we're going hard and it's hot. And Coach Ferentz screams at the top of his lungs, "Everybody stop, don't move." He says, and so we're all standing in the huddle and we're just gassed. He says, "Landan Paulsen." And I'm like, oh no.
Uh-oh.
"Look down at your feet." And he comes up and he's standing right next to me. He's like, "Look down at your feet." He's like, "Do you see that?" He's like, "Point your toes straight ahead." He's like, "Wait on your insteps." And everybody in the whole practice was dying. And I'm just like sitting there like embarrassed because it's something I've tried to work on for 4 or 5 years. But he stopped the whole entire practice just to tell me to point my toes straight ahead. And Coach Doyle still gives me crap about it to this day. It's just,
yeah, that's a pretty good one. The thing that I think about that, usually a lot of people don't see is really just how competitive our practices are against the defense, and how much Brian Ferentz and Coach Parker really, really love to compete. I mean, it's like a chess match. But the thing that, a lot of fans don't see is the fights we get into because it's so competitive. And, some of those fights have escalated to, people losing teeth, people, biting through their lip, getting punched, ripping off helmets, starting to throw punches and stuff. Because it is really competitive, and a lot of them are like hysterical. We'll go back and watch them on film time and time again, just because it's like, holy crap, dude. It's a brawl. But on the backside of things, Brian Ferentz and Coach Parker, because there's obviously NFL scouts there, there's, other recruits there are other recruits' parents. So they're screaming, right? They're like, "Stop it. Why are you doing that? Quit it." On the line, making us do sprints and stuff. But then, the story starts when we get back into our position groups, where they're like, you guys know that we just yell just because we have to cover our ass, right? You guys can start as many fights as you want. He says, "I fucking hate the defense." And that's just something that you guys don't see, but it is really competitive,
It's so competitive.
I think most of them were spurred from, we'll be practicing and it'll be just kind of like an uppers practice. We don't have any pads down below. So the defense is just supposed to tap the skill players, tap the wide receivers, tap them below the waist. And if they put somebody to the ground, oh my gosh, it's like all hell breaks loose. And some of those fights get pretty wild.
Oh, that's crazy.
So you're talking about Brian Ferentz, and you've mentioned Coach Doyle, and with what went on last summer, and they've been in the news again this week. What was both of your relationships like with both of them? And talk about how what your experiences were.
Yeah, I think I'll comment on that first.
Okay.
From my perspective, no matter who my teammates were, I would always respect them, black, white, no matter what. Every person on my team I had the utmost respect for. Specifically speaking about Coach Doyle and Brian Ferentz, I had great relationships with them, and I don't think I could say a bad word about them. They created myself. I let Landon speak for himself, but they created me into a player, and even more so a person that maybe going in I never thought I would be. So that's my 2 cents. I want to keep it brief at that, but I'll let you comment.
Yeah, it's a tough dynamic. I don't think that anybody could have, ever foresaw what was going to happen last summer. But I'll just echo what he said. Those 2 guys are a couple of the greatest mentors in my life. Just good people, and good people in the fact that they're brutally honest, and they're brutally honest with me and him. And they know that me and him know when to get stuff done and when to have a good time. And I think that's something that they taught us, is that we can have a good time, but when it's time to, play football, it's business. When it's time to lift weights, it's business. And, for that, I don't think I could ever repay them. I just, a couple of the best guys best guys and best coaches I've ever met in my life.
Pretty much everything you guys have said has been echoed to the T from every other former player that we've interviewed. It's just, it's the Iowa way, and it's the standard set equally for everybody on the team. And some guys are able to adjust to that and conform to the way that they want to run the program, and other guys struggle with it. And that's natural. I mean, that's going to happen, no matter where you are. So we, appreciate your guys' insight on that. And shifting over to a little bit of a lighter note, our team here came up with some Iowa Hawkeye Twins trivia. And so we're going to run this by you guys a little bit. I'll ask the first one, and then Jerry, you come in with the rest. Okay. Cause I know Jerry led our research team on this one. So
it consisted of a couple 6-year-olds that I saw, when I was picking my kids up from school. So just be ready.
Leave those kids alone, Jerry. All right. So the first question we want to know from you guys is Iowa Hawkeye Twins trivia is how many sets of twins have played football at the University of Iowa?
In the history of the program?
Yes.
4?
6.
4 this year? Oh, that's my year.
Which
6.
answer?
6.
6 is correct.
Yes, sir.
That was damn good. You're 1 for 1.
I think I honestly read it in a what do you call those? When I give you a brochure, a program.
Oh, yeah.
Program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Peter.
And just so you know, what's on the line here, if you get these correct, is Adam and I's respect. So,
Bush Lighter from
oh yeah, for next time we're in Iowa City, or we might be able to arrange for a couple of those too.
We can do that.
Go ahead, Adam. Got another one?
All right, number 2. Who were the last set of twins to start at Iowa together?
Landan and Levi Paulsen.
Other than you two. Come on.
Before you two.
Would it be Chikozy and Chikizi? Or did they not play?
Ugiassi?
No,
Was
I
I-
don't think it is. I don't think it is. I want to say
That
it
was like
that would have been like 2002 era. I think
All
it was.
right.
the Hides.
The answer is Kent and Keith Ellis in 1980.
No.
Play together. Start together.
Oh, true.
Start
Yeah.
together.
We pay this research team top dollar, so they can't be wrong. They're top of the line. And then the last one is, who are the last set of twins to play football before you? Let's see.
At Iowa.
At Iowa. Yeah. Jerry, you got to clear that one up for me.
Not
Start
together.
You're just saying play.
The last set of twins before you played at Iowa. Who were the last set of twins to play at Iowa before you?
Is it between 2010 and 2020?
Just a little bit before 2010.
You're close.
Close.
Gosh, I used
Was Chick on
no, they were way
Claiborne's
earlier.
team? They were way early, weren't they? I want to say they're like young. I can't remember. Young?
No,
Yeah.
I don't know. What
know.
that is.
All right, we can help you out. It is Shane and Sean Prater.
Oh,
Raiders.
shit.
Hey,
It's all right. Let's.
we
I-
did not grow up watching football, so
I wouldn't have remembered that one either. I did when I read that. I'm like, God, I forgot all about that. I didn't even know. So, and so with that, that's going to move us right into our kid question of the day, brought to you by Meyer Electric with shockingly good service since 1931. The kid question of the day is: if you two were a pro wrestling tag team, what would your tag team name be?
like some pretty explicit things come to my mind initially. But,
Just let it fly.
What would our tag team wrestling name be?
You can't tell me you've never had that conversation as kids or as adults, because you're way more mature than I would have thought.
well, I think it's only fitting. I mean, border states, Iowa, Nebraska. You know what I'm thinking?
What? Corn and soybeans?
No, I'm thinking you.
What?
I wish I could mute.
Just say it.
Just go ahead.
Like Missouri River boat ride or something.
That's unique.
There you go.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Tag team name. I mean, I'd probably have to go back to like, you know, the early days when we were growing up. Mobile, we played basketball in Sioux City at East High School, and all the Sioux City area schools, Sergeant Bluff, East, West, they referred to us as the Twin Towers. So that's probably what I have to go with.
That's cool.
Yeah. So guys, with your, you know, something I wanted to touch on while we had this interview was with your candidness. You get, you know, it's honestly, it's obvious you've got respect for your teammates, your coaches, the mentors in your life. I mean, and you really came across while you were there, like is really, you know, just really good guys that we're finding out you are. And so some of them, while you were at Iowa too, some of the off the field, you know, tell us a little bit more about the philanthropic efforts you guys had. You know, you got paid to cut your hair for the dance marathon while you were there. You, I believe you moved some couches at some point. You were, you know, it always seemed like we were hearing about some of these stories. And I know you're probably too modest, but I mean, tell us a little bit about where that comes from. Have you always been that way? You know, was that ingrained? But it seemed like you guys were always doing a lot of great things for the community behind the scenes.
Yeah, before I go into the philanthropic efforts in college, I think it stems back to kind of how our parents raised us. The one thing I remember growing up was if somebody did something nice to us, or, you know, gave us a nice gift or something, our parents would always make us write a hand thank you to them, no matter what it was. Handwritten.
That's awesome.
So I think that's where it all stems from.
I think another thing that it stems from is we were probably in first or second grade, and we had neighbors across the street from us who were probably 85, 90 years old. And it snowed a lot one day, and Mom's like, "You boys need to get outside and go scoop their driveway." And we did it. And we scooped their driveway, and we're like, okay, blah, 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 whatever. Then we did it again a couple of days later after a lot of nagging. And then the old guy comes out and lifts the garage door, and he says, "Hey, I haven't paid you for the last 5 times," and handed us like $200. And we're like, oh,
wow.
We can't take that money, like $20 maybe. And then Mom's like, "When are you ever going to do something nice for your parents? You should scoop our driveway too." So then we kind of started our own snow removal business, but we really realized how appreciative people on our entire street and in our community appreciated what we did for them, you know, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it comes back to, you know, reciprocity in that that's kind of what our entire lives revolve around is the give and take, you know. We're not going to expect anything out of them, but we're going to treat everybody with respect. We're going to give them our best. If a little kid wants to take a picture with us, absolutely, we're going to do that. Because of the fact that, you know, for one, we care, and we are pretty lighthearted dudes, and when we care about, you know, everybody and their dog for that matter. But you never know what some sort of little gesture, some little action, you never know what kind of dividends it's going to pay for you in the future. Might open a job opportunity up for you. It might open, you know, an opportunity up for kids that I have someday. So that's where I think it stems from. Do you want to touch on college endeavors and dance marathon?
Yeah, and I just think one more thing to add on to that is, like, we were little kids at one time too, and for us, we would look up to the high school seniors, and we thought it was awesome. We were water boys all growing up because we just like to, you know, do a good job, you know, and they really appreciate it, and we looked up to them. So you never know how it's gonna turn around and benefit you in the future. But as far as the philanthropic efforts in college, it was kind of a crazy deal. We grew our hair out because we were clean shaven and wrestling in high school. We had never grown our beards out. We were on Accutane acne medicine, and when we would shave in wrestling, it would just rip our skin off too.
Oh, I've been through that.
So like when we're done, like we're not clean shaving ever again.
And we're moving away from
our number one barber, which is our mom. So you know, we're not paying for a haircut, so we're not getting one. So we grew our hair out for 3 or 4 years, and there's a really awkward phase in there for a long time, and we were obviously redshirt, so we were there for 5 years, and both of our girlfriends were didn't redshirt, so they were there for 4 years. So my girlfriend's last year in college was 2018, 2019, and she's like, I took a year off from doing dance marathon. She's like, I really want to set a goal that's, you know, that's bigger than what I've done before. And I'm like, well, what have you done before? She's like, 2,000, 2,200, 2,500. And I'm like, how about 5,000? She's like, nah, I think that's too much. And I'm like, how about 5,000 and I'll cut my hair? And she looked at me and she's like, you'd really do that? And I was like, yeah, why not? And it's like, I think that me and Levi are so sporadic, you never know really what's going to come out of her mouth. And our buddies can attest to that. And Lexi was like, you really do that? I was like, yeah, let's do it. And she's like, well, do you think your brother would do it? I was like, probably not. Levi wanted to keep his hair so when he was done with college, he could cut his hair and kind of be irrecognizable by the rest of the world. So she asked him, and he's like, no, I don't think so. He's like, come on, $10,000 and $10,000, and you both will cut your hair and shave your beards. And she's like, Levi's like, nope, not happening. A couple hours go by, and Levi's like, 15 grand, and I'll do it. And so that's kind of where the journey started, and our campaign efforts kind of got to 7,700 really fast. Like, we're at the halfway point in like 2 weeks, and it was like, whoo, like this is going to happen, no doubt. And we're just like,
wow.
We don't want to cut our hair and whatnot. But then it just plateaued and it stopped. And so it's coming to be like 3-4 weeks before the dance, and we're like, we don't have the money. Like we're not doing it, you know. And she's already raised like a shit ton of money for one person. But anyways, we went and spoke at no, it was afterwards. Mm-hmm. We were getting ready to go speak at another charity event in what was it, West Des Moines, mm-hmm. For a nonprofit called Miracle Travel Works, and we were kind of some of the keynote speakers there, and we talked to some of the connections there, and they're like, "Hey man, how much money is it gonna take to get you guys to 10 grand? I really want to get you guys past this plateau." Told him, and he's like, "All right, check's in the mail." We get the check. It's over. We're over 10 grand. And then the rest is history. We ended up raising almost 18 grand
wow.
for the University of Iowa Dance Marathon. And I mean, in large part to a lot of the people that we've met in Iowa City, and a lot of people that we've met throughout our journeys in life. But we had donations come from Europe and Hawaii and New York City and Florida and all over the country, which was really cool, you know, and it just goes to show that there are Hawk fans everywhere, and there's a lot of people out there who are doing a lot more, you know, than just something good, and it's pretty cool to see.
Tell us what that transition was like when you go into college and growing your hair long and having to manage that. You know, I've been trying to get Jerry to grow his beautiful locks out for a really long time, and he won't do it. He doesn't feel like he can handle the pressure of all the female attention that he's going to get. So,
again, you're laughing. Come on, guys. I mean, seriously, he's being serious.
Yeah, I can see Jerry with the ponytail.
There's a reason I wear the hat every interview, by the way. So,
no, I wear a hat as well. But what was it like? I mean, that transition, because that's tough. Usually, guys are pretty low maintenance and they don't want to spend time dealing with long hair. Like, what was that transition like for you guys?
Well, it was interesting. Well, first and foremost, we got to talk about what really kind of influenced it, maybe. I mean, we already talked about mom kind of moving away, but also the culmination of kind of our country music icons, Willie Nelson, Chris Stapleton,
right.
These people that were Jamie Johnson, these kind of rough David Allan Coe people that were
Merle
like
Haggard.
We were like, yeah, we want to look like that. I mean, we love that kind of music, and it just seemed fitting. So we did it. But anyways, the transition, it was very weird because we had never had long hair. ever. We never had hair ever touch our ears. So that was the first thing I remember was like, holy crap, my hair is touching my ears. And I felt itchy all the time. Like, oh, I don't like this at all. But then as it started to grow, I don't know.
I mean, we had a couple guys growing out their hair on the team too. It's like, yeah, we might have looked rough, but like our buddy Nate Meyer, Nathan Budgeta, they all grew their hair out too. It's like, so we weren't the only ones who looked a little rough around the edges.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the thing about it is that what makes it really rough is that, during the season, you're putting on a helmet and pretty much forcing your hair to make like dreadlocks. I swear, it just gets matted, and it is a lot. A freaking lot to manage.
A lot of work.
But I mean, you have girlfriends and they teach you how, you need to put the conditioner in like this and brush it from the down out, and it's like, didn't think I'd learn that until I think kids. what was even harder was having long hair and getting it cut off. I mean, it was the weirdest feeling ever. Like you felt like a sheep, that just lost its coat. Didn't know what to do with it. We're like looking at each other. We're like, man, you look messed up. Why you act so weird?
Oh, geez, just wait till you get to like in your 40s and 50s, and you're gonna feel like a sheep getting your back hair sheared off and all of that stuff too.
It sounds like way too much work. I don't feel so bad now. So,
hey, we need to ask you guys too, since you brought up Nate Meyer's name. We've been trying to get Nate Meyer to come on the show from the very beginning, and he said he would come on, and then all of a sudden he just he looks at all of our messages because it says seen, and then he hasn't replied in about 6 months.
I'll give him a nudge.
Give him a little nudge for us.
Appreciate
all right.
That. So.
That guy.
I'm sorry, guys. I got to do this. I got to get really somber for a question right here because I'm the old guy and I've got these really life-pondering questions. So if you're ready for this deep subject, are twins really telepathic? And if so, did that help you on the offensive line when you played?
Oh, good heavens. I mean, I would say both of our answers would be yes. Telepathy is a real thing, and it's.
So did Landan just tell you? Did Landan just tell you that telepathically, and so you spoke for both of you, or?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I mean, we know it's true. Like,
yeah,
the shit that happens on a daily basis that we do, like, without even saying anything. Like,
2 weeks ago, I was getting ready for a work trip because I'm in sales, so I was traveling to Nashville, and I didn't have like a pair of casual dress shoes. So I just on my own, I went to Kohl's and I picked up like some casual dress shoes. And I get home, and Landon's got dang near the exact same pair of shoes, and we did not talk about it at all. Like, Levi, what are those? Where did you get those? He's like, check mine out. I'm like, that's just so crazy. Didn't talk an ounce or a lick at all.
That shit happens all the time. I mean. It's great. I mean, and even like we won't even on a weekend or something if we want to go hunting, we won't even ask each other if you want to go hunting. We're just like, you thinking what I'm thinking? Yep, okay. And then we wake up at 4 a.m. and go turkey hunting. It's like
specifically on the football field, though, guys. I don't know. I don't know about.
I think it helps.
I think it does help. I don't know about as much in college as we thought it really did in high school, just because it's so scientific, but I do think it helps.
I would disagree. I would say that it 100% helps. But we didn't really ever get to know.
Yeah,
because we didn't really play on the same side.
I mean, when you're with these guys, so I mean, you're with your, what we call brothers, our offensive line, counterparts for 5 years. For 350 days a year, so like those guys become almost like twin brothers to us, and you can understand and read their minds, and they can read your minds, and you play together enough with a certain person, Tyler Lenderbaum, Austin Blythe, Sean Welsh. You can feel it. You can feel when Josie Jewell's pissing down his leg, ready to blitz. That means a few things. That means Budge is going to loop way out, and Drew Ott's going to come smoke you in the face on a U game. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
No, that's a great answer.
That was a great answer. And I think the explanation, like you were just talking with the line being your brothers, you mentioned early on about how, the coaching staff is all about the details. And so, they had you kind of one heartbeat basically in your endeavor. So,
yeah.
So when you guys were at Iowa, and we probably got to wrap things up here. We got to let you get back to your lives there. As long as much as we'd love to sit here and talk to you guys all night, but you guys played with just a really wide array of some eccentric, wild, crazy characters, like you said, a Drew Ott, a Nate Meyer, Nate Budget as a friend of the show, a guy that we love. Tell us who that one or two guys were that were just like, man, like, I can't believe I know this guy. He is the most out of control, wild, crazy, just hardworking, intense football player that I've ever seen play or played with.
Man, that's a really good question. Holy buckets. From a football player perspective. Man,
I would say I've never seen anything like Drew Ott in 2015. I've never, ever in my life have I witnessed anything like that guy. Playing wise, like, it was absolutely insane. He was going to play his best football of his career, and he was going to get drafted really high.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, it was incredible.
Yeah, and Drew Ott was in my mind too, because that was our first summer there. The new players typically come in June, right? They come in June, they practice throughout the whole summer, kind of get conditioned, get accustomed to kind of the flow of things. So we did a lot of conditioning workouts that first summer, and I just remember watching Drew Ott, and we do sprints, and the next closest person to being on his level when we were doing sprints was maybe 15, probably 20 yards away from him. And it's like,
it was incredible.
How does your body do that? You're the same size as that guy that also plays defensive end, and you just finished 20 yards ahead of him. It's just like something that you're like, whoa.
And crazy too. We went to his bachelor party, on a river up in Wisconsin.
All right.
And
you're like, okay, tell me more.
I've heard a little bit about this from some other guys.
We took a Giltner. We took a
miniature bus.
Giltner miniature bus, and we thought we were a little hillbilly. We had a lot of fun. I'll never forget it until the day I die. But that was crazy. That was definitely a good time. But on the other side of the spectrum, I really think that Tristan Wirfs is another one of them. I just think he's a great kid. Go ahead.
Let's circle back to this bachelor party. I'm thinking there's probably a few good stories here.
I'm thinking there's a 30 for 30 behind this, as much as we keep hearing about this. So.
Yeah, like we've had a lot of guys really start to tell us a little bit about this party. Walk us through a little bit of that night and what transpired, because this sounds like it's kind of an under the radar epic night that a lot of us don't know about.
Well, I think the Wisconsin Bowl got off easy compared to what we're hearing about this bachelor party. So.
Yeah,
this bachelor party was like, it was supposed to be all hooped up and awesome, and they're like, this river. It's legendary in Wisconsin. People party and there's beaches and all this stuff. And we get there, and it's downpouring, and it's like 50 degrees, really cold, and we didn't have any food. We would go get cases of beer from the concession stand. Like every 10 minutes, we get cases of beer, and there's nobody there, nobody at this place. And what are some of the things that went on?
Well, the thing that really sticks out to me is that Drew Ott and former other defensive lineman Logan Magnolia, what's his name? Dominic Alvis.
Okay.
They woke up the next morning.
Have you guys had Dom on?
No, we haven't. We're gonna write that one down right now. I gotta say, before, you guys were recommended by about half the guys we interviewed to have on too.
Dom Alvis, the best Kirk Ferentz impersonation.
Or-
The best. He will make you piss your pants laughing at how good it is. It is phenomenal.
You guys got to help us get him on too.
10-4. What we were, the thing I remember about it is, and a lot of stuff went on, and some of it's pretty explicit, so we probably can't talk about it. Nothing like, wow, I can't believe you guys did that.
We blew up a car or something. I mean,
yeah, it's all pretty believable stuff, but probably not rated here. But woke up in the morning and Drew Ott and Dominic Elvis are pretty much in a fight, an argument, because they were both yelling at each other and arguing about who was pissing on who during the night. They're like, no, I woke up and you were pissing on me. No, I woke up and you were pissing on me.
Wow.
It was the funniest thing ever. I think we laughed for a solid half hour.
And we didn't stop on the way up there. There's 20 of us crammed in this tiny bus. Like 20 of us crammed in this tiny bus. We've got a 5-gallon bucket with a lid on it. People were pissing and pooping and all the way up. It was redneck, but man, it was fun. I'll never forget it.
Wow. Well, guys, that was fantastic. We had an absolute freaking blast talking to you. I feel like we could do this for another hour, but we know you guys have lives to get back to and gotta get up and work tomorrow. So thank you so much for all the great memories you guys created for us Hawkeye fans and for taking the time out of your guys' busy schedule to sit down and catch all the Hawkeye fans on what you guys are up to right now.
10-4, guys. Thank you so much for having us. Let us know how we can promote this on social media, etc. We're happy to do that for you guys. Thank you for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to the point too, thanks guys too. We hear all you guys talk about leaving the helmet in a better place, and I mean you guys were well represented, as we said. I live over here in the area and used to see the local news with you guys being from Northwest Iowa, and you were well represented while you were there, and we just really appreciated how well you represented the Tiger Hawk at your time. So
it means a lot.
Yeah, it means a lot. Thanks guys, appreciate it.
All right, thanks guys. Go Hawks.
You bet.
All right,
We'll see you, fellas.
Take care.